fine. Thank you very much. Okay, the meeting is quorate. And before I open the meeting, could I wish everybody a happy and healthy new year? And perhaps I should place on record my thanks to all the Newport City Council Planning Department staff for keeping the planning process active and operating during the past difficult 12 months. Thank you all very much. First item on the agenda is apologies for absence. I have one at the moment, Councillor Jason Jordan. Are there any more?
No other apologies, Chair.
Thank you very much. I then must read a statement which is standard. Please really wait for the broadcast to be switched on, which we've done. Today's meeting is being filmed for live and subsequent broadcasts by way of the Council's internet site. The images and sound recordings may also be used for training purposes within the Council. As you will see from the agenda papers, generally the public seating areas are not filmed. However, by entering the meeting room and using the public seating area, you are consenting to being filmed and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings for webcastings and/or training purposes. Those public speakers have been made aware of the broadcasting arrangements prior to this meeting. And would members please use their microphones to contribute to the meeting, and please remember to switch off the microphones when you've finished. Also, could you ensure that you refrain from using any mobile devices during the planning committee, and any mobile phones, iPads are switched off or on silent. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda, declarations of interest. Is there any member present wishing to make a declaration of interest? And if so, on which matter? No, thank you very much. The next item on today's agenda, the minutes of the meeting held on the 1st of December 2021. I could refer you to page 3. I've got to jump to page 5 for accuracy first. Page 5. Page 6. And page 7. Okay, would somebody who was present propose they were a true and accurate record, please?
True record, Chair.
Thank you. Is that seconded?
I'll second it, Chair.
Thank you very much. Okay, any matters arising from those minutes? No? Okay, thank you very much. If we then move on to your agenda, today's agenda, item 1 is on pages 17 to 23 of your paperwork. It's application number 21-0725. The site is St Andrew's Primary School. The ward is Liswerry. Ward members are councillors Jevons, Critchley, Richards and Morris. And the presenting officer is Joanne Davidson. Over to you, Joanne. Thank you very much. Good morning.
Good morning. Happy New Year to everyone. I'm going to share my screen. So can you please confirm that you can see my presentation?
Yes.
Loud and clear.
Thank you. Okay, so as the chair said, the first application is at St Andrew's Primary School. It's for the retention of a temporary classroom. I've explained the reason for it in the report, but briefly, the school has encountered some structural issues in the main building, which is under my cursor on this map here. And it's meant that some classrooms and obviously associated students and staff have had to decant at short notice. which no doubt has been a bit of an operational nightmare for the school itself. But what it's meant is that some of the classrooms have had to go off-site to maintain education provision. But the school has been very keen to keep the special educational needs provision on the site, and hence the reason for this planning application. So the actual site that we're looking at today is outlined in red, and I'm just showing it on my cursor here. So this is the main school building, and the area on which the cabin has been sited is currently sort of artificial grass play area. I'll show you some better photos in a moment. So on aerial view, you can see this is the area where the temporary classroom has been sited. So importantly, from that, you can see it's right in the centre of the school site, so it's not immediately adjoining any existing residential properties. And also importantly, it doesn't affect this parking area at all. So as cabins go, there's nothing remarkable about this one. It is standard. It is a ready-made classroom. So all the facilities you'd expect on the floor plan. So this is the school for those who aren't familiar with it, and these photographs are taken before the classroom was sited. So this piece of green plant that you may be able to make out on this photograph here under my cursor, and the artificial grass in the foreground, this is where the cabin has been sited. So here on this photograph, and taken some photographs while the school has been closed for the holidays, just showing that this building that we're looking at today has been sited, obviously for education provision purposes, and is very inoffensive. It doesn't affect anyone. This is taken from the road. You can barely see it. Certainly has no adverse impact whatsoever on visual or residential amenity, and we support the continued provision of special educational needs on the site. You'll note in the report the only issue that we've spent some time on is flood risk. The site is within a flood risk zone, zone C1. But in fact, with the decant of quite a number of classrooms from site, the overall risk on site has been decreased, not increased. We have less students and staff on site now than we otherwise would have. And you'll also see from the report that this is for a temporary period, whilst the Education Service review the works required to the main school. And that temporary period is for 2 years, so you'll see a recommended condition to that effect on the report. Not much else to say on that, Chair, so we recommend it be granted subject to the conditions stated, and happy to take questions if necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. Thank you very much. Committee. Excuse me. Any questions? No. Someone prepared to propose something?
Chair, having read all the documentation and obviously heard the presentation, I think it's very worthwhile and necessary, and I propose that the plan application is accepted.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Guy. Is someone prepared to second that?
Yeah, happy to second, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Committee prepared to vote? Yeah, okay. Can we implement the voting process, please?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Guy, can I have your vote, please?
For the application?
Councillor Clark, please.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Watkins.
For the officer's recommendation.
Councillor Ferris.
For the officer's recommendation.
Councillor Spencer.
For.
Councillor Lacey,
4.
Horsey,
4.
thank you. Councillor Jones,
4.
and finally yourself, please, Chair.
For the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. That's a unanimous vote.
Okay, much obliged. Thank you very much. We then move to item 2 on your agenda, which is on pages 24 to 32 of your paperwork. The application is number 21-0739. The site is 11 Cairo Crescent. The ward is Stowe Hill. The ward members are councillors Kate Thomas and councillors Miqdad Al-Nawami. Presenting officer Stephen Williams. Over to you, Stephen.
Thank you, Chair. Just share the screen. Okay, can you all see the screen of the presentation? Okay, 11 Cairo Crescent is a 3-storey property located in the Stowe Hill ward. The application is proposing to change the use of the property from a 10-bedroom guest house to a 6-bedroom dwelling with an element of care. And the application has been called to committee by Councillor Al-Nawami. Just run through some photos. So that's the property from the front, from Cairo Road. You see it's got a driveway, and there's a tree right next to it, which is has now been protected. That's the view from the rear. And then that's looking across the rear yard towards the neighbour, and then swimming round to the rear. So the application, as I say, is to change the use from a guest house to a 6-bedroom dwelling with an element of care. On the left-hand side is the existing ground floor plan, and then on the right is the proposed ground floor plan. So the main changes would be that the existing bedroom 1 would become an accessible bedroom with an accessible bathroom. Then bedroom 2 would become an accessible lounge, and then the dining room would become a communal lounge dining area. And the result would be that the ground floor would provide 1 ensuite bedroom, a lounge and a dining room with a kitchen. The first floor plans, so the changes at first floor level would be that bedroom 5 would become a communal lounge. The bathroom would be converted to a kitchenette, and bedroom 7 becomes a staff bedroom. So that provides then 3 resident ensuite bedrooms on this floor with a communal lounge and an ensuite staff bedroom. And then on the second floor, bedroom 10 becomes a communal lounge. And so this provides 2 bedrooms, each having a bathroom and then a communal lounge on that floor as well. Looking at the block plan, so the main changes would be the front boundary wall would be repaired. A disabled parking space is provided in the front forecourt. This tree is to be retained. 3 parking spaces provided in the rear courtyard, and then some facilities provided at in the rear yard as well. So you've got clothes drying facility, bin storage, and a cycle stand. That just gives you a bit more sort of detail of those facilities. There would be a compound constructed to provide bin storage, with a brick wall and timber gate providing access to the bin area. On the front of the property at second floor level, there are timber windows. They were originally proposing to replace those with UPVC windows, but the conservation officer wasn't happy with that, so they're now proposing to provide secondary glazing, which is internal, doesn't need planning permission. So in terms of the nature of the proposed use, what I provided you on the slide is an extract of the Town and Country Planning Use Classes Order with respect to residential type uses. So the existing guest house use falls within C1, which is a hotel type use with no element of care. And it's proposed to convert it to C3B, which is effectively dwelling houses. And this allows for up to 6 people living together as a single household and receiving care. So examples under C3B is supported housing schemes for people with learning difficulties or mental health issues. So that is what's being proposed as part of this scheme. The property will be managed by a housing association and will provide supported living accommodation to help build skills for independent living, and residents will be able to live at the property for up to 2 years. The level of care will depend on the tenants and their needs. 3 staff will be allocated for 2 tenants, for each 2 tenants, but they would not visit the property at the same time. So in terms of the principle of the change of use, the proposal represents the loss of tourist accommodation. However, whilst there is a policy relating to tourism that only relates to tourist development in the countryside and is generally permissive, there's no actual policy that relates to the protection of tourist accommodation. And the proposal represents the gain of much needed supported housing and comprises a residential dwelling that is acceptable within a residential area. So in terms of the principle of the development, it's acceptable. In terms of parking, the requirements are that we need 1 space per 4 bedrooms for residents. So 2 spaces are provided, which is in accordance with those requirements. We also need 3 non-resident staff. 1 space is needed for that and is actually provided. And based on 1 possible member of resident staff, 1 space is again provided for that. So there's a total of 4 spaces, which is in accordance with our supplementary planning guidance. And highways have raised no objection to the scheme. The tree, the copper beech, was originally proposed to be removed, but this has now been protected and is to be retained. The site is in the conservation area. So this is the Stowe Park conservation area and the property is here. So it's within the conservation area. As I mentioned, the conservation officer did have initial concerns about the proposal to remove timber windows from the front 2nd floor, but they've now removed those proposals and are proposing secondary glazing instead, which is considered to be acceptable. In terms of concerns about character and antisocial behaviour, the proposal is for a single dwelling, albeit with an element of care. It's not a house in multiple occupation, or it wouldn't be that, and it's not considered the proposal would affect the character of the area. And we consider that the proposal would provide a suitable living environment for future residents, and the use should not adversely affect the amenities of neighbouring residents. So to conclude, the application is granted subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen Williams. Thank you very much. Committee. Oh, Councillor Watkins, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Only one question, and that is the car parking. There was no mention of visitors parking space. Do we have that at all, or we're not using the highway?
No, there's no visitor parking. I mean, the visitors are likely to be the staff. They will visit, and it's caters for those staff members that would visit, but there's no it doesn't cater for visitors or people who may know the residents there.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Charles Ferris.
Yeah. Thank you, Chairman. Stephen, could you tell us again who's likely to use this place? I think the reservation of the local residents is not so much what's being done to the property, but who's going to go in there?
Well, the residents haven't been picked. It'd be operated by Melin Homes, which is a housing association, and the property would cater for people with care needs, but the specific residents, the tenants haven't been chosen, and the extent of care will depend on the particular tenants that move in. But they will sign contracts to live there for up to 2 years. Yeah, so I can't really provide any detail on who exactly those tenants would be and what their level of need would be. It would depend on the tenants.
I mean, for example, could this place be used as a bail hostel or drugs rehabilitation?
No, a hostel is it falls outside. If I go back to, I'll just show you that extract I showed you earlier. Can you all see that?
Not very well.
Okay, hold on, I'll just try and make that bigger. Yeah, so Class C1 excludes hostels. Right. Hostels has become what we call a sui generis use. So if you want to use a property as a hostel, it will always need planning permission. So using this as a dwelling house under C3B would not permit the property to be used as a hostel.
Right.
All right, it's an entirely different use.
Right. Thank you. That's great.
Councillor John Guy.
Yeah, I fully support the application, but could you put the photograph up of the tree? I got a question to raise about the preservation of that tree.
Okay. You see that?
Yeah, I got that. My main concern is, obviously it's a bit of an academic question and it probably doesn't relate to this at the moment, but what happens in the future if that tree gets bigger, if the roots start to pull up the drive and everything? What sort of action can be taken, or what remedies could be taken if the tree is protected?
What protection means is that if somebody wants to do work to a tree, they have to apply, and they would have to provide evidence that for instance, the tree is potentially causing a danger to property. So it doesn't mean that people can't do works to trees. It just means that they need permission to do that, and they need to be able to justify it to the council. So they would have to submit an application, essentially a tree preservation order application.
Great, that's the clarification I wanted. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Guy. Councillor James Clark.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, just a couple of points. Looking at the councillors' notes, I'm not sure if they're from the ward councillors or Councillor Matthew Evans, I'm not sure, but HMO is mentioned 3 or 4 times there, and I feel that's sort of a bit of a red herring here because that's not the case. So I just want that noted because, you know, I think that's unfair. And when you mention Melin Homes, I think they've got a huge reputation, a good reputation, and you know, I think it's touched on that supported housing is needed. It really is, and how important it is. So I'm, you know, I think touching what Councillor Guy said, fully behind this, and I really think it's a good use of a property. So yeah, fully behind it, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Clark. Any other councillor? I've got no other raised hands. Any other questions from the committee, please? No? Someone prepared to make a proposal then, please? Councillor Guy,
Chair, I propose that we accept the officer's recommendations.
okay, is there a seconder to that proposal?
I second that, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Spencer. So it's been proposed and seconded. We accept the officer's recommendation. Can we move to a voting situation, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Guy, can I have your vote, please?
Yeah, for the recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Clark?
Yeah, full recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Watkins?
For the officer's recommendation.
Councillor Ferris?
For the recommendation.
Councillor Spencer?
For.
Councillor Lacey?
4.
Councillor Forsey?
4.
Councillor Jones?
For.
Thank you. And finally yourself, please, Chair.
Yeah, for the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a unanimous vote, Chair, granted with conditions.
Okay, thank you, Pamela. Much obliged. We then move to item 3 on your agenda, pages 33 to 36 of your paperwork. It's application number 21-1116. The site is Crinda Primary School. The ward is Shaftesbury. The ward members are Councillors Herbie Thomas and Councillor Paul Cochrane. And the presenting officer is Joanne Davidson. Over to you, Joanne. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll share my screen again. Hopefully you can all see that. So next application, Crinda Primary School. So another primary school, this time to install play equipment and a play trail on the schoolyard. I should add, these are being presented to committee, not because they're in any way controversial, but because they are on council-owned land. So this is what we're looking at in terms of the play equipment, showing the position of it on the plan. So again, within the school grounds. This plan also shows you the dimensions and the height of the equipment. It is really to enhance outdoor play equipment for the school users. This isn't for general use. And some goalpost type facilities, again about 2 meters high, and some netting for climbing, again just over 2 meters high. So for those not familiar with the site, here's some photographs. You can see the yard here where we'll see this equipment sited, perhaps a better photo on the top left. So again, well within the school grounds, no direct impact on any nearby properties. It will be visible. It'll be visible from the highway, as you can see from these photos, and because of the nature of the boundary treatment. But as we've said in the report, this is for school children. This is not, a general play area. So will be used during school hours and will provide additional interest and facilities for education purposes when the children are playing outdoors. So as far as we're concerned, planning wise, Chair, acceptable in terms of visual and residential amenity. And over and above that, a positive addition to the school's facilities. So we're recommending it be granted, subject to conditions, and happy to take questions as usual. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Joanne Davidson. Thank you very much. Committee, any questions, please? Yvonne Forsey, please. Councillor Forsey.
Good morning. I just wanted to ask how the treatment of the playground, the surface, what would that be like? It's not just going to put this equipment on top of tarmac yard, are we? Because I'm, wondering about the safety of that sort of approach.
Chair, I'm not sure I have that detail. I mean, obviously logic, as the councillor suggests, is that it would be some sort of matting that would be a safer alternative for the children, but ultimately this is an operational issue for the school and a safety issue for the school itself. So whilst I don't have those details, I'm as confident as I can be that the school won't be planning to put it onto the current concrete surface.
Okay, thank you. I mean, one of the typical uses at the moment is that sort of slightly spongy tarmac, isn't it? And I wondered if that was being put in. I mean, something needs to be, for safety, something needs to be done to make the surface safer, doesn't it?
I agree, councillor, and my instinct is that there are certain rules, not planning rules, but safety rules that would require the school to do that.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much for clarification there. Any other questions, please? Someone prepared to make a recommendation, please?
Yes, Chair, I'd like to support this and to go forward.
Okay, it's been proposed that we accept the officer's recommendation on this application. Is there a seconder, please?
I'll second that, please.
Thank you. Any other points of clarification? Okay, Pamela, can we move to the vote, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Guy, can I have your vote, please?
For.
Come back again. Councillor Watkins?
For the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Ferris?
For the recommendation.
Councillor Spencer?
For the recommendations.
Councillor Lacey?
For the recommendation.
Councillor Forsey?
For.
Councillor Jones?
For.
Councillor Clark?
Yeah, for the recommendation.
Thank you. And finally yourself, please, Chair.
Yes, for the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. That's unanimous vote for the officer's recommendations.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your contributions. We come to the next item on your agenda today, which is item 4, pages 37 to 42. It's application number 21-1151. The site is 16 Northfield Road in Killeen. Ward is Killeen. The ward councillors are Councillor Giles, Councillor Hughes and Councillor Watkins. And the presenting officer is again Joanne Davidson. So over to you, Joanne. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Sharing my screen again. So let's move on. So yes, the next application, 16 Northfield Road, a proposed single-storey rear extension, proposed side dormer and a dormer extension. The reason this one is being presented to Planning Committee is because an officer of the department is a neighbour to the site. So this is a householder submission, so ordinarily we deal with this under delegated powers. You'll see from your report we have some objections, so I'll try and tailor my presentation to deal with those points. So this is a plan of the property as it currently exists. So you can see a dormer type bungalow, quite typical of this area actually. I'll just take you back a slide. This is the property. Hopefully you can see my cursor on the map. So it's at the end of a cul-de-sac type arrangement set behind some of the properties. Now to the north, we have open ground, so no other properties to the rear or north side of the property. And the objections that you see in your report are from properties along here. Again, hopefully you can see my cursor, but it's these that have expressed some concerns as highlighted in the report. So as I say, the property at the moment, a dormer style bungalow. So just to describe, this is the front as existing. The side where we have an existing dormer which is to be extended, and the rear of the property on the bottom left. So taking you through then to the proposed plans. So the floor plan here, my cursor is outlining the rear extension. So that's here. On the elevation, this is the rear, bottom left, and you can see this single-story extension with a flat roof. The applicants are also adapting the original window on the rear gable there to make that a larger glazed unit. But if you recall, I noted that to the rear of the property, there are no other houses. It's just open space. So to the front of the property, again, some adaptations to that top window. But the issue that seems to have caused the biggest amount of concern with the objections that have been noted on your report is this dormer on the bottom right. So you'll recall from the previous slide, we have a small dormer with this window in it, and the proposal is to expand it widthways quite noticeably and add this additional window here. So going back to the existing, there we are, there's what we currently have. Now this window serves a bathroom, but the window itself, the glazed unit, is clear, it's not obscured. So we already have views from that window to the neighbouring properties. So if I go back to this plan, remember I said this was the building here that we were looking at. The dormer that appears to have caused the most concern to the objectors is on this side, on this east side here. And as I said, it's these neighbours that have expressed reservations regarding the proposal. Okay, so the other side, the other dormer, is completely blank, no windows at all in there. And the reason being, if I take you forward a slide to some photographs, so the blank dormer is on this side, and you can see why. Because the neighbouring property has a comparable dormer, but they have 4 windows looking at the roof slope of the site. And therefore clearly to put windows in this dormer would cause a direct window-to-window conflict and wouldn't be acceptable. So that dormer is blank and will serve the purpose only of giving additional headroom in that roof space. So the dormer and the side that appears to be causing the most concern is this one. So there's the existing dormer with that clear glazed first floor window. Another view of that there on that bottom right slide. And the top right slide here is the rear elevation where that single story extension is going. I should say we've got no concerns at all about the single story rear extension. We're happy that has no impact at all on residential amenity. As I say, to the rear of the property, there are no other units, no other residential units, just open space, so it has no adverse impact at all. The blank dormer that is proposed on this side, again, no adverse impact, and you'll see on your report we're recommending conditions to limit the insertion of openings, as we are to limit the insertion of additional openings on this one. So perhaps to shed a little bit of light on the extent of reservations expressed by some of those neighbours as cited in your report. it's worth noting that the top two images on this slide were the original plans that we had. So these were the original plans we consulted on and the original plans that the neighbours expressed their concerns about. And you can see when you compare it to the bottom two, you can see the noticeable difference with that dormer. So what the applicants have done, they've taken account of what the neighbours have said. They've removed two windows, so these two windows now have gone, and they were proposed to serve bedrooms. They've retained the window that already exists for obvious reasons, so the only additional window now is this one, which will be a bedroom window, and you can see it wraps around that dormer to face the rear open space. So again, no issue at all with this. Now this additional window, this single additional window we have retained, we've tried as best we can to sort of show how this relates on this plan here. This distance, which is the nearest distance we can measure between that new window and the neighbouring resident, is 21 metres. And to the intervening boundary is 10. That's all supplementary planning guidance compliant, and we have no concern regarding it. In fact, we would argue as officers that the situation will be improved for the residents that have expressed concerns previously, because this existing window is actually, as I indicated, clear glazed and technically closer to those residents than this window would be because of the way the site is laid out. So if the new window is here, let's imagine the existing window is approximately here. And you'll see again the conditions on the report and further to discussions with the applicants. This window, although clear glazed at present, will be obscure glazed. And we've secured that through conditions. So we're actually going from a single clear glazed window here or here in the original dormer to a clear glazed window here, which will serve a bedroom, but is actually located further away from those residents. I hope that makes sense. Just to give you an idea of the relationship. So those residents that we know have expressed reservations are shown over here. This is the back of the property. You can see there's nothing, there's no other units behind here. And as I say, that window that is going in the dormer is going to be roughly where my cursor is here. So overall, with the conditions we've recommended, we have no objections to this one. We consider it acceptable. And we're happy no demonstrable adverse or significant impact on the neighbours will arise, and therefore we recommend it be granted, Chair, subject to those conditions. Thank you. Okay,
thank you, Joanne. Thank you very much. Committee questions, points of clarification? Councillor John Jones, please.
Hello, thank you, Chair. I would just like to comment on the applicant's goodwill of making changes to his proposal. I think the benefits of having the obscure glass to the existing window is beneficial to the neighbours. I propose that this is a good application. The only question I've got is what is behind the application? Is it because of a growing family, or why are they proposing this extension? If I could just have some clarification on the reason behind it. Have we got any idea why? Is it just that they're going to stay there, they want to make the changes for improvements as living quarters, or do they need to do it for any other reason, please?
Should I just, if I just comment on that, Councillor Jones, I don't know if that's a planning consideration, to be honest. Sure. But if Joanne wants to make a comment, by all means.
Jay, you're right. It's not for us to ask why. I would guess it probably is along the lines of what the councillor has suggested, but the reason for making an application is not necessarily, and certainly not in this case, something that would be relevant to us. Yeah, well, thank you for that. It was just clarification, really, because it's quite a substantial change, but I fully support it. I think it's a good application, and the changes are taken into consideration of the neighbours' concerns.
So I'm supporting that proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Trevor Watkins.
Thank you, Chair. One question. According to the proposal, they are planning to change the garage to a utility room, basically. How does that comply with parking spaces on the property then, Joanne? Does it still meet standard?
It still meets the standard, and the reason being, Councillor, is because that garage that they have at the moment does not meet our supplementary planning guidance standard for garages. It's too small, so it doesn't actually count as a space. So they're not losing a space, and because the size of the property, albeit enlarging, isn't increasing the number of bedrooms for supplementary planning guidance purposes, i.e. the parking requirement doesn't alter, there's no impact on parking, and we've got no objection from Head of City Services on that basis.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Joanne.
Thank you, Councillor Watkins. Councillor Charles Ferris.
Thank you, Chairman. Joanne, we usually have reservations about dormers on the side of buildings, and there's a potential there to create a structure with an ungainly appearance. Will we have any say or input to the finish of these dormers? I mean, what you've got at present, I don't know, have you got a photograph of what we got at present, please?
Okay, I'll put the photographs back up. That's probably the easiest way of doing it. Okay. So these are the photographs I showed you. What you'll notice is we've got a lot of this type of dormer bungalow designed property in this area. So whilst I completely agree, dormers can look awful in some contexts, in this particular context, it's very in keeping. Well, I mean, I suppose that top left photo is an example of that. So we can see the neighbour, a similar design property with those flat roof, quite large dormers added to it, but it's quite typical. So even though the dormer enlargements are quite large in relative terms, they are not out of keeping with the character and appearance of the property or that particular locality. Not saying this type of dormer would be acceptable everywhere, but it's acceptable here. In terms of materials, good question, and I'd probably have to check. I'm suspecting they've put materials to match, but without checking the actual application form or plans. Let me just check. Yeah, it looks like it's tile hanging or cladding, and just looking at this, I can see this is a sort of a UPVC cladding, but next door has some sort of tile hanging. All I can say, Chair, because without checking back, I can't specifically give that answer right now, is that we will certainly check. I agree with the councillor, the materials must be acceptable, and the fact that we have not recommended conditions suggests to me that they are. But I will check. If you want to come back to me in a moment, Chair, then you can do that, or ultimately leave it with me to check that, and if we're not entirely clear, we can add a condition to that effect. But I'll leave that up to you, Chair, but I'll proceed to check it now if I'm given a little bit of time.
Okay, by all means, yes, you take some time and check it now if you could. Yeah.
No problem.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other committee member wish to raise a question or a point? Councillor Forsey.
Just while we're pausing a moment, I'll just raise the point about we have garages that aren't big enough to count as parking spaces. It seems a bit ridiculous, really. I have to confess I've got one myself that's a garage that I couldn't possibly get my car in, even if it didn't have bicycles and canoes in it and things. So I'm glad that the planning guidance has been amended so that we are in the future building garages that that are big enough, because having garages that you can't get a car in seems a bit regrettable to me. Thank you.
Okay, well, I think that point has been noted, but Joanne is perhaps still looking for the information for the previous question. Okay. Any other councillor, any other committee member, please? Councillor John Guy. Councillor John Guy, you're indicating, please.
My apologies on that. I'll start again. Yeah, can I say that the application, the neighbours, everything is they've considered what the neighbours' reservations were, and everything has been done to clarify and satisfy everyone. So that's pretty good, really.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Councillor Guy. Any other committee member? Thank you very much, Joanne. You are ready to reply?
Thanks, Chair. Sorry, I've looked through all the plans. I can't find a direct reference to the material. So what I would suggest, and sorry, that was a bit of a quick check, so I might have missed something, but what I would suggest, Chair, is that we add a condition that requires confirmation of the details of the materials. On the dormers, I think specifically, less so the rear single-storey extension.
Thank you, Joanne.
Thank you, that's helpful. Right. Any other questions, please? Nobody else is indicating. Okay, is somebody prepared to make a recommendation, please? Councillor Guy.
Chair, I propose that we accept the recommendations with what considered conditions there were. Yeah.
Okay, it's been proposed that we accept officer's recommendation with the added conditions regarding the finish. Somebody prepared to second that?
Yes, I'll second it, John Jones.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Pamela, could we move to a vote situation, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Guy, can I have your vote, please?
For.
Councillor Clark?
For.
Councillor Watkins?
For the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Ferris?
For the recommendation.
Councillor Spencer?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Lacey?
For the recommendation.
Councillor Forsey?
For.
Councillor Jones?
For.
And finally yourself, please, Chair.
For the officer's recommendation.
Chair, that's a unanimous vote for the officer's recommendations.
Thank you very much. Thank you. The last item on your agenda is item 5, the appeals decisions, which are for noting. They're on pages 43 to 48. And I think that concludes the business of this meeting of the Newport City Council Planning Committee for Wednesday, the 5th of January.
Can I ask a question, please, Chair, about the enforcement?
By all means.
I notice there's 3 enforcements there. Chair, what's the next procedure now? Do we know what happens next to those 3?
In what way, Councillor Watkins?
Decisions have been made, non-compliance, and obviously they've got a cost and fine. So do we wait for them to pay? And if so, do we have a time scale, 28 days, 3 months, or what?
Was someone from the legal department prepared to answer that, please? Thank you for your question.
Chair, I haven't been involved myself personally with the prosecutions, but yes, there will be a certain period that they will have to pay by, and then it's a continuing offence. If they don't pay, then that we would take further. There'd be further actions. But as far as the breaches are concerned, they should be, once they have got fines, and then they should be resolved. Perhaps Tracy wanted to clarify, is it?
Yeah, Tracy Brooks, thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, so just to confirm, we'll be having ongoing dialogue with these people in receipt of the notices, just to obviously see what the next steps and what their intentions are. You know, it is still open to us to prosecute again if they continue to not comply with the notice. So, you know, it won't be left there, I can assure members of that. And we will be engaging with those people to try and encourage them to comply with the notice. Otherwise, we will go back to the prosecution route again. And then there might come a point when we decide that we need to take works in default, but you know, we're hopeful that we can encourage them to comply with the notices, whether it be voluntarily or through the courts. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Thank Tracy, and thank the legal department as well.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Watkins. Thank you. If there are no other questions or query, again, I wish you all a happy new year and a healthy new year, and see you at the next planning meetings. Thank you very much. Cheerio. Goodbye to you all.
Thanks, bye.